terrific meeting. We discussed a lot of things. As you know, I had an excellent phone call with President Putin that lasted for over 2 hours. We discussed a lot of points, and I do think we're getting a lot closer, maybe very close.
Okay, President Trump speaking to reporters alongside Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, indicating that Russia and Ukraine are closer than ever to a peace agreement. However, the president also warning that if an agreement is not reached, then the combats and the bloodshed between the two countries may not have an end in sight. Now, Zelensky says that the current draft peace framework includes 15 years of security guarantees from the U.S., with Kyiv pushing for that to be extended for all the way up to 50 years. With us now, Andrij Dobriansky, the communications director for the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Jon Herbst is the former ambassador to Ukraine and Uzbekistan. Gentlemen, good to see you both. Ambassador, I'll start with you. How close are we to peace? Talk about that security guarantee and what that means for us here in the United States and what we could be asked to provide for maybe up to 50 years.
We are not close at all. The Trump-Zelensky talks were a serious step forward to coordinating the U.S. and the Ukrainian position. Or put another way, the U.S. and Ukraine's position got much closer as a result of those talks. The problem is that Trump has offered 5 or 6 plans to end the shooting since March of this year. And Zelensky has said yes to every single one. Putin has said no to every single one. So the real question is not what Ukraine is willing to do. Zelensky's demonstrated time and time again a readiness to compromise. Is what Putin's ready to do. And Putin's response to the progress made in Florida between Trump and Zelensky was the lie about Ukraine allegedly attacking his residence, a lie which CIA Director Ratcliffe revealed to be baloney.
I want to get your take on everything thus far.
Of course, I agree with the ambassador about us not being close, but we are absolutely closer. I think what this meeting represents is the different ways that both Ukraine and Russia have taken to President Trump. We've had 2 major clashes with both leaders, one in February with President Zelensky and one in August when President Putin came to Alaska. Both of them angered President Trump. What you saw out of Ukraine is picking themselves up and within a week's time changing their strategy and getting a minerals deal with President Trump. And every time that President Trump has asked for a modification from Ukraine, Ukraine has come back to the table and said, we will work with you on this. What you're not seeing as Americans, we're not seeing any change from President Putin. And that's the thing that President Trump has identified. As the ambassador rightly pointed out, Ukraine is working closer and closer with the United States and President Trump. And Russia, it seems, is taking a standoff position, not budging at all on anything. And we just saw the first civilian deaths happen overnight on New Year's Eve, first in Dnipro, around several provinces of Ukraine. And at the same time, as the ambassador was putting out that lie by President Putin, saying that his residence was being attacked, there was a 4-year-old girl that was killed that same week. A 4-year-old girl killed because of a rocket attack. And that was not mentioned at all in these press conferences.
Ambassador, let me ask you this. If it's all, and I think we're all in agreement here, it's Vladimir Putin who, just to put it plainly, isn't willing to play ball at this point. Why do we keep hearing the president say that, you know, we're reaching almost 90% in agreement with this deal, and it's tying up maybe some loose ends to try and, you know, finalize it?
Well, I think that the use of 90 or 95%, Zelensky also using those terms, reflects what's going on between the United States and Ukraine. A willingness on Ukraine's part to compromise, and on, for that matter, Trump's part to compromise, to recognize legitimate Ukrainian concerns. But we're not really closer to an agreement, because you have to have the other belligerent, the aggressor, agree. And there's no indication of that. And, you know, the reason why the Russians claim that Ukraine tried to bomb Putin's residence was because they didn't like the fact that there was progress made between the U.S. and Ukraine. They wanted to change the subject. Because, you know, Lavrov said, the foreign minister said, well, because of this alleged attack, we have to reconsider our position in the negotiations. Because Moscow wants to continue the war. Putin's aim is not to have his control of the parts of Ukraine his troops currently occupy. It's to have effective political control of the country, which means he wants a lot more territory, which is why he demands the handing over of the fortified Western Donbass, which Russian troops have been unable to conquer, despite nearly 4 years of the big invasion, because to the west of that is open plains, open forest, which is not fortified. And again, Putin's aim is political control of Ukraine. He doesn't want peace.
Okay, got to leave it there. Andrij, Ambassador, I appreciate you both coming on.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy New Year.